we don't want people that are staying less than 12 weeks. When you're running the numbers, it makes sense. Hey, I can get 2 extra rooms. I can make extra money. But when you can't fill the rooms or they're constantly turning, then maybe really in the long term wasn't worth it. So that's going to start taking over your life. And that's not why you got into real estate, is to be a manager. You got into real estate to make money.
This is kind of a dangerous question. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Dylan. I'm a Tampa broker for investors, and this is the follow-up to my Padsplit 101 video where I covered the basics of Padsplit. Today, we're talking with somebody who manages over 1,000 Padsplit rooms right here in Tampa, and his name is Fred Vilhower. Did I say your name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Fred started investing after the 2008 housing crash while serving as a lieutenant, firefighter, and paramedic. Over the last 3.5 years, he's become one of the true experts in Padsplit property management. So I'm excited to have this conversation. We're talking about what it actually takes to run these properties, what investors get wrong, and where this model is heading. Welcome, Fred.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Padsplit in the first place?
All right. As you mentioned, we started buying houses after the 2008 big real estate crash. And so we're investors by nature. So it makes it a lot easier when we're dealing with, our owners, our, property, versus other property managers, where some of them just don't have that investment background and they just don't know how to talk to their owners or understand the full pain behind the repairs, the vacancies and all that. So, but anyway, we started, buying houses, and then we had a franchise bug. We were going to open up some restaurants, but then we're going to have to move out of the area. So we still had our franchise bug, and we ended up buying our property management company, bought a franchise of that, and we're just moving along, doing long-term rentals. We've been managing our own houses, so it wasn't a huge transition to start managing others. And then we're doing short-term rentals as well. And Padsplit was mentioned by one of the other franchisees out of Atlanta. And so we just kind of checked into that, and there was like a big group coming to town looking to buy some houses. And so we started managing their houses. It started off nice and slow, and then there was nobody really in the area. It was like one other person managing Padsplit houses in the area. And so word got out about us because we were doing such a great job, and then it just took off. Yeah. And within a couple of years, we went from 30 houses to 160 houses. We're at 1,000 rooms right now. So
that's impressive.
And the thing is, there's not a lot of training behind it. So you have to kind of trial by fire. And so,
right.
And so what you don't know that the members and tenants will teach you of the houses. And so we've overcome a lot of that. They're going to teach you something new, at some point. But there's a lot of the common mistakes, common errors, and common practices that help you out. And so we've come across basically most of them. Yeah.
So would you mind sharing what your company name is for those out there who may be interested?
Okay. We're called PMI Palms. It's called Property Management Incorporated, and we're a local franchisee. There's like 500 offices around the country, and it's one of the fastest growing. They've been around since like 2008 or so around the country. So
Gotcha. So that kind of leads us into, you've been around for a few years. What's driving the explosive demand for pad splits in Tampa right now? I mean, do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, it is kind of multifaceted, but the big thing is this area, the cost of living versus the wages is kind of the biggest thing. When we started with our own houses, what we were charging rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage block house in a subdivision is what people are paying for a room right now in this area. So, the rents have definitely gone up. We never really seen rents go up like they did historically. They settled down a little bit, but they haven't come down much. Right. And so that's one of our biggest issues. And, and it's not just the young people, right? So there's other things factoring into that too, because now the old people, our seniors are retired, citizens of the community. Yeah. They can't afford, like their landlord comes in, hey, we're selling
fixed
the
income
house
too. Fixed income, a lot of them. Yeah.
Like, hey, what do you got for $1,000? I'm like, I can't find you an apartment for $1,000. So now they're kind of stuck.
It's hard to find a studio for $1,000 even these days. I mean, it's you have to go pretty far north. So, and then how does that, the market's changed over the past few years. So what do you think it was like when you first started versus now? It might be kind of hard to determine, because it started out slow, and now that, you started out and there's 30 rooms, like you said, and now there's like 1,000. So do you see any differences between I don't know, like the demand for the returns in my mind are still there from a few years ago to now, and that's one of the main drivers for the investor side. But I guess, would you say that, the difference between now and then would probably just be that it's harder for people to find rooms to rent, or studios and one bedrooms to rent, and so now they're having to kind of get into these smaller room setups.
Yeah, and there's also a habit of people where the habit and what we're doing in society is people want to just working from home, working remote, and so they're kind of hopping around, and it's kind of got this trend of people not buying houses. So that also factors into it. But right now, the biggest thing is the affordability, right? So that's our biggest thing, and what makes it appealing to investors is like, I wouldn't wholeheartedly, and everybody's got their own investing strategy, right? But if you're buying a house and you kind of like, man, those numbers for buy and hold, they're kind of tight. But if you had this pad split model, you go, there we go. Okay, now it works.
It's much more like leeway, more comfort. Like you make an error, you're still cash flowing a couple, like 100 or at least 100 or 200 a month. So yeah, I can see that for sure.
And so that makes like, when you're getting ready to close on a property and you're just kind of walking that line, when you can put that pad split model in, it's now you have something that's a little bit more worth the risk of the purchase price.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I don't know if we'll get too much into the numbers on this video here, but I mean, I've done that before on a couple other videos in the past, and like the numbers are just huge comparing from long term to pad split. This model isn't just investors chasing returns, right? It's actually tenants are choosing this type of housing for real reasons, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and it's not just for fun; it's a necessity, right? So you find out a lot of this is a necessity for these people. It's whatever the necessity is like, hey, I make enough money, but I don't qualify for 3 times the rent, or I'm not certain how long I'm going to live here. Where you don't have to sign a 12-month lease. There's a minimum commitment, but you don't have to sign a 12-month lease. Or maybe you do have the money, but it's hard to come up with first and security and deposits on power, and
while you're waiting for the return of your last security deposit from the last place you're moving out of, or maybe it gets cut in half because so I get it entirely. This is what I'm really interested about, is what does it actually take to manage a pad split day to day? Because I venture to guess that none of your well, obviously if you're managing them, they're not managing them, but you don't have any clients who are managing self-managing somewhere else where it's outside of your zone, right? Probably anybody who owns these are like, they're paying somebody to manage them, because it's as you'll get into, it's not passive.
Right. So it's a lot different than, long-term rentals where you sign a 12-month lease and, you have tenants that you don't hear from except when it's time to renew their lease. They take care of the house. It looks great. Nothing ever breaks. Those are easy. Those are wonderful, right? Property management, people are like, why would you do property management when you're buying houses? I'm like, that's easy compared to pad split. And the reason I say easy, it's that it's a lot labor intensive, right? Because you have to have your systems in place. You're managing people with, all the years I had in the fire service, I had to manage people. We were co-living. We shared a refrigerator. We shared dishes. I lived in that shared environment. Again, I was their supervisor and it was a little bit easier. But, again, it's co-living, and I understand co-living. People snore. People want to watch what they want. So I get that. And it takes that certain individual of, you have to handle these daily chats. And on the Padsplit platform, the way the members and communicate back and forth with us is through a chat feature. And it's great. They're asking about what days of trash pickup, or hey, my clock, the battery's going dead, or they have, whatever they need to talk about, they can talk about on the chat. And so if we don't hear from a house that week, that's an oddity, right? So we hear from them all the time. And then of course I
think a lot of people have never heard that before, probably, that if you don't hear, I mean, maybe the people who own the houses do, but like the people who are getting into it for the first time probably have not heard that before.
Yeah, so like, I call it property management on steroids, because it's nonstop. We go from, it starts off around 8 o'clock in the morning is when it really picks up, until about 10, 11 o'clock at night. So it's all day long with the chats. We have booking requests and move outs and pay, people sometimes, hey, my paycheck got delayed or my direct deposit didn't go through. Can I get an extension? So it's constant churning all day long. So, and that's something that self-managing. And then, what happens is when someone buys a pad split house, right, and if they do it right, they're going to say, well, that's a good return on my money. Because I have people what I thought only had the means to buy one house. They're
Right.
brand new investors, right? They're brand new investors. They've never owned anything other than the house they lived in, and they purchased a pad split house, and it was doing so well that they found the means to acquire the next one, right? So look, you put $20 in, you get $30
Right.
back. You can look for more 20s. So, but then it gets to a point of you can try to self-manage, but the thing is, you're going to run into stuff you haven't run into before, and to save a few $100s a month, right? I mean, you're buying the pad split houses to be an investor to make money on your money,
Right.
and you're not.
You can't scale it.
Right. And you're not buying these houses to be a property manager. And we come to find out when people get to about 5 houses, maybe 10 houses max, if
That's a lot,
if they
though.
have free time in their life and they don't have anything else going on, and they're great with systemizing stuff. But 5 houses kind of where we see them getting overwhelmed. 10 houses. A lot of times when they get to 10 houses, they quit buying because now they're a property manager. And so we got our systems, we got our staff, we have in-house maintenance, we have our staff that mans the chats. You're going to need these things because now that's going to start taking over your life. And that's not why you got into real estate, is to be a manager. You got into real estate to make money.
Of course. So what does the turnover cadence look like when you're talking about managing these properties? So like, how often are you inside these rooms? I don't know, each year, like.
So we always, it's not required by Padsplit that you do a monthly cleaning, but we always do a monthly cleaning because you want the members of the house are responsible to clean up after themselves. And I try to instill with the owners and with the members of the house that this is your home. This is not an Airbnb. It's not a hotel. This is, we're not really in a hospitality-based industry because these aren't hospitality-based prices. This is an affordable housing solution, right?
Yeah.
It's meant to be a place to live. So we try to teach them that, and so we stop by at least minimum. Let's just say the minimum is once a month we're in the house at the very least. And it's usually more than that because maintenance stop by, someone moves out, so we call a room turn. So if you have a 7-8 bedroom house, you're going to, even though you're not losing a person, not staying month to month, right? But once you get that volume, about once every month or so, you're going to get a vacant room. Again, we've had people in our houses 3.5 years, and then sometimes people say 3.5 weeks because it's not meant for them because they get there and go, I didn't realize I had to share a bathroom. I didn't realize, So, but again, the average stay is 8 months.
Okay, I was going to ask you, because and I know that they sign a lease with Padsplit for a minimum as well. So when they stay for these 3 weeks, because I haven't talked about this before, but when they stay for a very, very short period of time, there's like an allowance from Padsplit. Like maybe you can describe this further, but how can they get out of that room early?
So they have a couple different options. They can transfer to another house. Maybe they're like, hey, I booked, but I didn't realize Zephyr Hills is an hour from Tampa because I'm moving from New York, so, or this is, sometimes people, we've had houses where people butt heads and we put them in separate houses and we don't hear from them again. So sometimes you have to manage, people, but don't want to get off topic, but they can transfer. They can transfer to another house, but still stay in the Padsplit,
ecosystem
there. Yeah. And, but the other thing is maybe they decide, I'm just getting out of Padsplit, or unfortunately my job transferred me 3 weeks after I moved here. So again, there's 2 options. One is they can sign a week-to-week commitment where they pay extra when they first move in. So that way, if they break their lease, and it's again 12-week commitment. So if they leave before that, they've paid up front, they don't have any penalties. However, we don't want people that are staying less than the 12 weeks. Sometimes we'll take a chance on people that are staying 2 months, but they say, hey, I'm just coming to town for 3 weeks and then I'm back out. And I'm like, well, that's an Airbnb. Or that's something else. So when I know they're not going to stay, because some people say I'm going to stay a couple months and they stay, 6 months, 8 months, 2 years. So, but if someone chooses to sign their 12-week commitment and leave early, then they pay what's equal to 2 weeks rent. So let's say the rent's $200 per week and they leave early, they have to pay $400 to get out of that.
It's not too bad. Okay, so one of the questions that I get about this, though, like all the time, is the evictions. How many evictions do you get? Because so that's a clean move out setup, what you just described. When somebody leaves a little bit early, it's pretty clean and it benefits both parties. But what happens when, how do you deal with evictions? How many are there? And So, ironically,
since we have such a large room count, we can look into percentages. So when they say, hey, there's 1 to 1.5%, we can go, okay, well, out of 1,000, this is how many we have or gotten. We've had 3,000 members, we've had 30 evictions or whatever, right? So, but if you have a house and something went wrong, and you have a 7-bedroom house and you had 3 evictions, like, I had one lady who just, right. I'm like, that's just out of the norm. I'm like, we have houses that most of them never have an eviction, right? And so, it just, when you only have one house, it just seems like a lot. But but anyway, the eviction percent, it's about 1 to 1.5.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the eviction rate is going up across the whole board of all rentals. So if you had a long-term rental or a pad split, they're all kind of going up a little bit equally, because we deal with evictions, and when we speak to the sheriff, like, it was what's called, we'll get into this in a minute, but it was called writ of possession, is if the sheriff has to physically come pull you out. It used to be a week, but now it's turned into 2 or 3 weeks because they've gotten a lot busier. So it's just not pad split. It's the whole rental market. It's the economy we're in right now. So evictions going up. So if people choose to have a long-term versus a pad split, again, percentage-wise, it went up equally.
Interesting.
So a clean move out is someone says, hey, I'm moving out. They leave the room. And again, most move outs are simple. They leave, and they paid their balance. Their room is fairly clean. Repairs aren't usually needed. Just a wipe down, a mattress cover change, tidy up, sweep, mop, all that stuff. Again, you're not closing down
just one room.
Just one room, right?
Yeah.
So, and we turn them in about 1 to 3 days. They go in and off we go. Now, the complicated part is when they don't pay. You can tell them to leave, and Padsplit says, we're putting you in eviction, but Padsplit rules don't hold up in court as far as eviction goes, right? So what we have to do is do it legally, and we treat it just like we do a long-term rental. We give them a 3-day notice to pay or vacate. At the end of the 3 days, you can't count holidays and weekends and stuff like that. So it turns into more than 3 days usually, right? So we give them the 3-day notice. At the end, they've either left or they've paid. So a lot of times we post a notice on the door. They see that it's real. They pack their stuff up, they leave. Maybe go owing you a few dollars, right? But to get them out, get the room vacant, get it re-rented, not having the court fees, the filing fees, attorneys, and all that, it's great just to get them out and gone. Then if you don't go, then it turns into an official eviction. So we have attorneys. We got great attorneys. We actually brought them onto Padsplit, and they do the whole entire state of Florida now. And it's a simple process, and you don't want to do an eviction yourself, because once you make a mistake, you got to start all back over. And now you're 6 weeks into this, and you made a mistake. And this timer restarts. So that's why we're using attorneys. And half of what they charge for filing. Basically half what they charge is filing fees that you would have to pay anyway.
Okay.
So we got it down to a great process.
That's what I've worked for many property management companies, and that's what we've always recommended. Like, don't do it yourself, because especially if the people know how the system works, then I don't know if it's as prevalent in Florida as it is in many other states, but because Florida is more of a landlord friendly state, but they can talk, and they'll know how to kind of the little loopholes to extend it longer, and that's just more vacancy for you, essentially. So it's definitely not a passive investment like a long-term rental that's as easy to self-manage. But what's the one thing that investors consistently underestimate about operating a pad split successfully, in your opinion? Maybe not even opinion. What's the numbers on this percent?
So they underestimate how much work it is, and they also underestimate, like, if we don't set this up right, you got to set it up right from the start, because the owner buys it, the GC's there dating it, and then they pass it off to us, and we're married up to it, right? So whatever wasn't done, so we like to be brought in as early as possible, like, hey, you guys forgot to put an AC duct in this room, or, hey, look, have you thought about this? Whatever. We come in, like, you bought the wrong kind of locks, or whatever they're doing, they thought would be great, or, hey, I spent a lot of money doing this, but you need to kind of consult with us and go, hey, this is the best use of your money. Like, a lot of people think TVs are, again, they're a benefit,
right?
But we're getting more asks for, hey, I work from home, I need to be hardwired to the router.
Interesting.
So like, and it
Yeah.
was funny when we first started, we were like, I heard someone working from home in a pet split. I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. And yeah, there's a lot of people working from home in pet split houses.
Very
So,
interesting.
and not most of them are fine with Wi-Fi, but some companies require people to be plugged into to the router itself for security purposes, like health
Yeah.
insurance companies, Amazon, things like that.
Very interesting. So like getting that investment done, like when you purchase it is well worth it, because there are people like you might even be losing good, like not even just tenants, but like, I don't know if I should say tenants or members, but the good ones, like the people who are have solid jobs.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's not every house, it's not every room, but it's
Yeah.
just something we get more asks for that than we do because the TVs are inexpensive, and we found out, well, I don't know how to use this. It's broken. The remote's lost. My batteries are dead. So
Yeah.
and again, I feel that's you're stepping over into the hospitality-based industry when you do that.
Right.
And like
Everybody's got a computer,
right,
and like,
right.
yeah.
And we had another one where the owner made this like big master suite in the sitting room. And the guy goes, "Can I take the TV down and put mine up?" So
yeah,
I mean,
right. So they'll have a better, if they like
through,
TV, they're going to have a better TV than the one you'll provide. That is for
right,
sure.
right.
When somebody comes to you, I know floor plans are crucial, right? You have to have a good floor plan. It's not just how much square footage, although that plays a role. But, I don't know, like what other blind spots do you think that there are for investors when they're actively buying, so they don't buy like the wrong property?
Yeah. I'll touch on both, right? So one is, if you think about this, you don't want to be the only rental in a community, and especially you don't want to be the only pad split rental, right? So you don't have to get in a 100% rental community. You can, but you don't have to be. But you need to have some other rentals around because you're going to have a few extra cars. Again, if we have an 8-bedroom house, typically we don't have 8 cars. About half the people drive. The closer you are to the city, the less they drive. These one-off houses out in the middle of nowhere, they're going to have to drive, and you're going to need more room for parking, right?
Okay.
But the closer they are to city, e-bikes, Ubers, bus, walk to works, these things like that. I have people walk an hour to work every day. I'm like, oh, yeah. So, and they're local in the city. But so one is more of the location. Definitely no HOA neighborhoods. Look down the street, see if there's other cars parked on the street, other cars parked on the grass. Again, you don't need a whole 8 parking spots for an 8-bedroom. You need about 4. So, and then like you mentioned, square footage isn't always what's needed. You do need square footage, but the layout too.
Speaking of layout, so I can hone in a little bit on my question here. Is one of the big things is how many, and I'm curious on your take, how many bedrooms should we have, right? Versus how large should they be? Because perhaps more bedrooms will make you more money, but you might have higher churn, higher turnover, might be more expensive to manage. Larger rooms, they might stay longer, might get a little bit more per room, but you won't have as many rooms. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on that as from a manager's perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had one buyer, very well versed, very experienced investor. He goes in and guts the whole entire house. Starts with just blank slate, bathrooms, kitchen, all the 2x4s, truss, everything kind of just comes down. And so he made 8 rooms, 80 square feet. And that's the minimum of pad split. You got to have your shortest wall has to be 7 feet.
Right.
So you can't have a 6-foot wide room. And you got to have at least 80 square feet. And so he made 8 80 square foot rooms. And he says, "What do you think of my house?" I said, "You renovated it very nice. He did everything right. He even made an electronic clock. He's definitely got some tech background, He put outlets in the ceilings to plug in, like a camera in the common area. And, all electronics are locked into one room. And he did it great. But I said, next time, don't make every room 80 square feet. And he's like, okay. And then he bought 2 more houses and did the exact same thing. And then he's got a high turn rate. And so here's the thing with these smaller rooms. You take what the house gives you first. If you have a room that's 80 square feet, that's already part of the house, that's fine. You don't need to make it any bigger because you can price that one a little bit lower because you're going to have a working person who needs a clean house and a place to lay their bed. And they don't need the bigger room, which you can charge more money and all the other amenities. They go, look, I just need a bed. I need a bathroom. We're good to go. Internet, bed, you're all set. So, but the larger rooms, you'll get longer stays. And it just seems like, we have one house that it's 6 bedrooms and they have 1 small room, and the owner insisted a queen size bed goes in that room. And that's a house. We have a guy there 3.5 years, but it's hard to keep someone in that other small, tiny room for 3.5 months. They threw a big bed in a small room. And so, but again, not every house is going to churn the small rooms, but
Right.
we want to try to squeeze in as many rooms in as possible. When you're running the numbers, it makes sense. Hey, I can get 2 extra rooms. I can make extra money. But when you can't fill the rooms or they're constantly turning, then maybe really in the long term wasn't worth it. So again, take what the house gives you.
Of course. And there's little tricks that you can do to cut out closets and add a little bit of square footage to a small bedroom. But I mean, on average, would you say 100 square feet is pretty average and it's maybe ideal? Or I mean, maybe ideal might be the larger, but I mean, ideal to, I don't know, min-max it, I guess.
Yeah, you will not believe what 2 extra feet in width and length
Right.
gives you. 100 square feet difference versus 80 versus 120 extra square feet. But those 2 feet just mean a whole lot because it gives a little more room to walk. And even in an 80 square foot bedroom, we can put a small little computer desk, a chair, and then they either have a closet or an armoire. We can fit all this stuff in an 80 square foot room. And then once you have a 100 square foot room, it definitely makes it feel
Opens
like you
it
got a
up.
little more room. Yeah, it's just that 2 extra feet.
Especially in Florida, some of our ceilings are pretty low, right? So when you have a small bedroom and low ceilings, it's like you kind of feel like you're a little trapped there. But kind of going a little bit more into the furniture, because another question that I get is like, what is the typical bed size? I mean, because 80 square feet, that's like a twin, right? Are you gonna put a full in there?
Yeah. So I say, again, we have like 5 twins out of all our rooms.
Oh wow!
And so,
that's like 5 out of 1,000, huh?
Yeah. So I mean, think I'm
0.5%. I don't know what that number.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so I'm 6'3" and I slept in a twin size bed for 25 years in the fire department, right? So I can make it work, right? And but you can almost always put a full size bed in a room. There's a huge jump from twin to full. Full's I think like 52 inches or 52 or 54 inches wide, and then like a queen is 60 inches. And so the difference between queen and full, it's in people's mind. More, they prefer a queen over a full or whatever. But when you come in there, a full is plenty for one person to sleep on. Because again, one person per room for the most part. And so we shoot for a full size bed. We can, and what we do is we've picked our furnishings for a reason, right? They all have a reason why we have what we have. And it's just not like, one owner can say, well, I got one house, I got 7 rooms, I can go pick one furniture, I can go down to the repurposed store or whatever. But when you're doing volume, you have 6, 7, 8, 9 furnishings, you don't have time to sort through that. And again, we picked what we picked for a reason. We picked an elevated platform bed. One, because we have elderly people, we have people with back problems. So the platforms all the way to the floor make no sense, right?
Right.
And then it's elevated so they can sit on it easier and get off it easier. And 2, they can put belongings.
Storage. Yeah, like that's even more storage. You said something there though. For the most part, what do you mean by like one person per room? For the most part, like has Padsplit? Is there something that I'm not aware of?
Yeah. So Padsplit has.
They just start doing this.
Yeah, so they have back when they started, they allowed dual occupancy, and then during the pandemic, they went down to one person per room, and now they opened it back up to what we call dual occupancy.
Okay.
And so what we do is, if you have 8 bedrooms and you have dual occupancy in every room, you got 16 people. That's just too many in the house. So we tried to find. Not every house supports it. I mean, if they're in a septic system, we're like, sorry, we can't make dual occupancies, or but some owners don't want it. But we manage such a large portfolio that we can say, hey, we got houses over here that allow dual occupancy. Like we have a 4-bedroom. I see. We have an 8-bedroom, 4-bath, and 2 of those bedrooms have private bathrooms. So we can make.
They're large enough and have private bathrooms. I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
And then sometimes you can make a floating room, like. Room 2, we're going to allow this couple to stay in this room. But now we can't make any more. We have the one because we want to overload the house because we have the right bathroom ratio.
Which is, I mean, in my opinion, is always like 1 to 3. I mean, listen, 1 to 1 is like perfect, right? But that's ideal, but it's almost prohibitively expensive. 1 to 4 is the minimum. Is like 1 to 3 kind of like where you like to see things?
Yeah, it is good. But we've had some people do something like a 6-bedroom, like a 5-bedroom house where 4 to 1 for the common and then 1
for a master. Right.
And I say, try not to do that, because if you have a problem with 1 bathroom, then everybody else problems happen,
Right.
And And
I see
so
what you're saying.
I think it's best to have 2 bathrooms, no matter how you cut it up.
Right.
I really say you should have 2 bathrooms as a spare.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I try to stay above 5 bedrooms anyway. So yeah, we're generally looking at 2 guest bathrooms all the time.
Right.
So that's been very helpful, especially for me. Kind of, you talked a little bit about areas though. I mean, how do you decide what are the best areas for Padsplit? And just to preface this, like I do know, and most people know that there is the market insights map on Padsplit where you can go, you have to have a sign up. You have to sign up, create an account into their portal, and then you can look at it's like a zip code map, and it'll show you how many active properties are. Kind of, there's just some nice data per zip code there. And I don't know, do you think do they keep that relatively updated?
Yeah, and you can, like, we do have people that have houses outlying areas and they want to try out Padsplit. And I would suggest if it's going to be your first one, stick it in the market area where there's all the other houses.
Right.
And there's a couple different reasons. Padsplit just didn't willy-nilly pick an area, right? They did their research. And they know that the populated cities is where the housing's most needed. And, the walking things as far as convenience store down the corner, the buses, the whatever, because a lot of these people don't have cars and
right.
They don't need them. Again, it's not New York City where there's a subway.
Right, very walkable. But I'll tell you what, these electric scooters, the people are just folding up and they're charging and they're just zipping around, like, man, way more portable, way better than a bicycle for like getting around to like the bus stops. And it's pretty, I think that's kind of opened up some stuff too. I see those all the time now.
Yeah. So, but again, and there's a marketing method too. They pick, okay, here's Tampa City proper, and we're going to go 20, 25 miles out in a radius, and that's where we're going to drop our marketing dollars. Well, you're paying Padsplit for a reason, right? So you're paying for their marketing. They're a big marketing engine. So if you go outside their marketing circle, yes, Padsplit's becoming a name where we have outlying houses that people book. And yes, they are showing up on Google. They are showing up other places. But the mass marketing is done in that radius. And,
Gotcha.
That's the place to be. And then again, within that radius, you need to pick the most appropriate neighborhood to be in. Right.
And then I think the zip code, again, that map from Padsplit is very indicative of kind of like the higher performing versus weaker performing areas. And there are still some areas that aren't very filled in, but then a lot of them kind of are. So you can kind of look within those areas, and it's a much safer bet. Who is actually renting these rooms? You talked a little bit about it, and I know we're going a little bit over on time, but who is renting these homes, and has it changed over the last 3.5 years?
So I
get this question a lot, so this is very important.
Right, yeah. I will let you know because it surprised me. Who would you think? Young 20 and 30-year-olds, right?
18 to 20-year-olds, yeah.
Yeah, like I was thinking even people in their 30s, right? But I was thinking we're going to get a bunch of 20-years. We had student rentals.
Right, students, that's the biggest guess that people, yeah. Right.
We own student rentals, and we were like, oh my gosh, you see what 18-year-olds who think they're adults leave a place, But anyway,
it's worse than the Section 8 vacancy,
Right. And so it turns out it's everybody. It is a big, wide, diverse group of people. We have 18-year-olds to 79-year-olds. And I'll make it quick, but the reason why is, again, we touched it on the seniors. They're on a fixed income. Where are they going to go? So we're getting seniors. We've had a lady, she's, I think, 2.5 years now. She's like, you're my savior. I had nowhere to go. I'd be homeless if it wasn't for you. And,
it's good,
it is sad. But it is good that they have a place to go. So again, we have our seniors, we have our young adults, and keep in mind you have to have an income source. So it's not people coming in who don't have an income source.
Because Padsplit does the vetting, and then they pre-qualify, I guess, not necessarily pre-approve.
Right. And a lot of our people do have jobs. We're more of a working class, but again, we have our retirees, and there is an option of like, hey, I'm coming, they can be a student, but we don't get that too often. But like if they don't have a job, they can prepay, a couple months worth of rent and stuff like that. So, but yeah, people are coming in. It's not a weekly place, even though they pay weekly or bi-weekly. It's not meant to be a weekly rental. Again, they sign that 12-week commitment.
Right.
And so it's all different races and sexes and ages, and it big. And we've noticed that the more diverse the house, the better everybody gets along too.
That's actually interesting. That's very interesting. Do you think that this is like a mix of like working class gig economy? Do you get like a lot of people traveling to Florida and staying in these things for like work for a short period of time? Like, I don't know, maybe healthcare. I don't know, like any of those types of fields. I don't know how much, information you have or how much that's provided to you.
Yeah. So I can just see our numbers, right? Because we get to see our booking requests, and every now and then someone says, "Hey, I'm gonna be in town for 4 weeks." We're like, like we don't want that because then it creates another vacancy, a room turn. So we try to stay away from that.
Padsplit does charge by each new tenant, right? There's a
There's
new tenant fee, so it's like the first 10 days you're not making any money anyway.
Right, and that's again if they paid the $175, that kind of offsets it.
I see.
Yeah, but we don't want that. We want the habit of like this is your home, this is affordable housing, and people are like. We have owners going, "Oh, I got a house close to a hospital. Let's chase the traveling nurses," but you're constantly chasing.
Because they're not usually there for like a year. From my knowing different ones, like they want to go to Alaska, they want to go to Hawaii, they might visit Tampa for a few months, but then they're kind of on to the next thing. So,
and a lot of times a couple of them travel together, they know each other, they just rent an Airbnb and stuff like that. But we have people trying to chase them, and again. You don't want to be in the chase. You want to try to get somebody that is going to stay. Again, people are going to stay 2 to 3 months, and because life happens. But you're looking for someone who plans to stay more, and we do. Like I said, the average stays 8 months.
Gotcha, 8 months. Okay, that's perfect. Because I always thought it was like 8 to 10, but it's probably closer to 8 now. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then those are averages. Again, we do have people stay 2 months, and that unexpectedly had to leave. So we're not going to say everybody's staying 8 months. You bank your book.
It just sounds like the model is maturing a little bit too, because like you have more years of data now too. It's not like, we think it's going to be 8 to 10 months, though it could be like a couple years, but like we kind of know now the average of a lot of things. And so it's kind of a good sign you can base your numbers on when you're looking for these properties or you're thinking about converting a long-term to a pad split. So where do you see co-living and pad split heading to in Florida over the next 5 years?
So no matter what the economy does, co-living's here. It's not going away, right? So, and it was here. It's just more controlled now because before I retired from the fire department.
It's like a structure around it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're watching our seniors, and it's sad to say, but we go to a house and I'm like, "What do you know about this person? Is he your grandson? Your whoever?" Well, I don't know. I rent the room to this guy, and it's like a nice middle class neighborhood, and a senior is now. Spouse passed away and they're trying to offset their increased taxes and insurance and their medications and the cost of that. And so they're renting their rooms out and they don't know these people. They get stuck with them. And so now this is more of a controlled environment. And that's from the tenant member perspective, right? So that's always going to be there. And I think this is better because now everybody that comes in the Padsplit has had a background check.
Right.
So where some senior allows 2 people to come move in with them and like, what does he know about being a landlord? Nothing against them, but I mean, it's safer for everybody. So again, that's not going away. I'm sure it'll ebb and flow a little bit, but this is here to stay.
I get a lot of questions about this. Do you think, how important is permitting everything? It's kind of a dangerous question, but
right, yeah. No,
how important is it? Because I have people who are very worried about, permitting everything. And what if we're, except we've had situations in St. Pete and other places where people maybe did not, and other circumstances kind of brought the lack of permits into question, right? Or question it as like a transient hotel or some sort of thing. So what is your kind of take on that? I didn't discuss it with you before, so sorry if I'm springing this on you.
Yeah, no. People are going to do what they do to their houses regardless, right? That's whether it's owner occupied or flippers or buying whole people, they're going to do what they do. They choose to permit, not permit and stuff like that. Cause there's 2 separate issues. There's permitting, the physical structure, and the zoning. Are you doing the right zoning?
Right.
And we're watching around the country, it's getting more regulated, and which is a good thing, right? So I think over time they're going to say, okay, this is needed because the pad splits of the country take the affordable housing off the local cities. And now they're not having to pay for housing assistance. It's already there. So I think that as over time, and we're seeing it too, like I believe it's Denver, they're all for it. And there's other cities that were for this. And you brought up St. Pete. St. Pete
Yeah.
was against ADUs, right? So
And now
they
everything,
didn't,
yeah, that
right.
changed.
So but now they're like, hey, these areas can do ADUs. And I think over time, what we're going to see is going to be better regulated. And they're going to say, hey, this is the requirements to be one of these houses. We're going to do an inspection. This is what we require. We're going to do the checklist. We're going to do the inspection. You're good to go. And these are the areas you can do it. It's kind of, like Airbnb. There's areas you can do it and areas you can't. I think we're just going to approach that as time progresses.
Right.
Because
is there a certain zoning that you think that most people are focusing on right now, or that you see that you would stay within? I mean, I know residential multifamily tends to be a good one, and maybe it's a little bit safer, but those are really hard to make financially work compared to single families, right? So is there like a single family zoning that you think?
Well, there's always exceptions to every rules, because we have properties that, I mean, you know them too, that you can turn a duplex, triplex, or whatever into a pad split, right? Where I say no to a 4-bedroom because you're gonna. We didn't touch this. I know you didn't want to touch too much on the numbers.
Sure, we can touch a little bit.
Yep. To make pad split work, you need to not make what you're going to make on a long-term rental. You need to make more than you would.
More expensive.
Because why go through all this extra work for the same return, right? So I say if you do it right, you triple your gross and double your net, because you're going to have a lot more operating expenses. You're going to have to pay water, power, sewer, trash, internet, and stuff you wouldn't have to with a regular long-term. However, there's you got an owner that has multiple duplexes all in one property, and you're going to have to pay for the trash service here. You're going to have to pay for the lawn care, and they're 2-story duplexes. So you, instead of paying internet for both, you're paying for internet for one. So you split that cost. Turn a 3-bedroom into a 4-bedroom. Again, 4-bedroom, I say don't do. But with this, now you have 8 bedrooms in 2 units. You know, and so then now where it makes sense, it's multifamily already. And so again, the water you would have to pay if it was a single family, or not single family, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. Do you think that we'll see institutional players entering this space, and to what extent? Because I have an opinion. I think that we are seeing some. Like, I have a couple people who have contacted me already, but I'm just kind of curious on what, if you're managing for several of those people already, or kind of what you think that's going to happen over the next 5 years too. Are more people going to get into this space in 5 years?
Yeah, I think over time, there was, what I have is mainly, it's amazing how many 1-2 houses they had. I got 1 or 2, but we do have some larger buyers because they see the advantage of, like, hey, I'm dropping my money in this, I'm getting more money back. So we do have single buyers with multiple houses in their portfolio, but we do have a couple institutional buyers that we manage for, and they're just trying to acquire a lot. But again, there's plenty of room for you in this space either, so they're not taking over the space. Right. It's not like the Invitation Homes and all those other
Progress.
we're just scooped up all the single family homes and stuff like that. But there's most of our owners are just an
like
individual. Yeah. We do have a lot of first time investors too. So
it's a really good investment for a first time investor, and it kind of sounds like it probably shouldn't be, just because of all the newness kind of it compared to the established long term rental. But I mean, everybody, it sounds like, wants to grow their, they want to grow their, I can't think of the word besides empire. They want to basically kind of accrue capital. They want to grow and scale and leverage. And the only thing you can really do in Tampa that really gets you that cash flow at like a $300,000, purchase is like pad split. I think, especially, I'm getting some worries about Airbnb lately, but we don't have to get into that. People scared and people backing off and actually stopping their operations with Airbnb. I've heard a couple of those recently, actually. So we'll wrap up here. I think, and I appreciate your time. If somebody has a property right now in Tampa Bay and they want to convert it to a pad split property, where do you come in and how can they find you?
Okay, so I like to come in as soon as possible, right? Because we want them not to make mistakes. And so it's a lot easier to bring us in and take a look at the property, talk to them. Like, don't force, hey, I got a 4-bedroom, I want to make a 5-bedroom. Don't force an existing house. And that's a big mistake we see people make. So don't convert your existing house. I'm going to say, hey, look, you're going to be making what you made before or less. Right. So bring us in early. If you're looking to purchase us a house, contact you and
Well, thank you.
bring us in as soon as possible, and that way we can work with the GCs and we can be there from A to Z,
Right.
You can, like I said, you can already have your house purchased and renovate. We'll come in at any step along the way, but again, bringing us in sooner definitely is the way to go. Our company name's PMI Palms, and you can look us up on our website, pmipalms.com. You can give us a call, and you also can contact Padsplit. They know who we are, all the way up to the CEO. So I mean, that's how because they'll have a local account executive. But yeah, I mean, you can just reach out to us directly. We'll be glad to sit and talk with you. I strongly suggest, that this is not something to be self-managed. A single family home, long-term rental.
Don't recommend it.
Yeah. You're just gonna, and if you're new to investing, this is definitely not the thing to cut your teeth on. You don't.
I mean, you don't want, one eviction's a lot, but if you have to do 3 in one house, that's like unfair, so.
well, that's because somebody's self-managing.
Okay. Touche.
And when you try to do it yourself out of state, or even if you try to use a virtual assistant out of state, it's
right.
Out of state. Need boots on the ground. You just have to. You have to see you coming to the house. They have to know it's you, because that helps control. Because people are going to bend rules, and so if you're here, they know you're here. So,
Fred, this has been awesome. Thank you for giving us an inside look, and for everyone watching, if you're serious about Padsplit investing, watch my original 101, Padsplit 101 for the basics, and drop your questions below for future videos, and be on the lookout in November for when I'll be getting with a knowledgeable mortgage broker on how he finances dozens of Padsplits this year. Any last thoughts, Fred?
Thank you for having me on. Again, I like it. It's a great revenue source, and looking to hear from everybody.
Appreciate it. Thanks again. Bye.
See you, Dion.